Hello guys, now in this video we're going to be talking about the aperture. We're going to find out what it is and how it's going to affect our final picture. Now the aperture is the hole inside the lens. As we can see here, I can make it larger and smaller. If we look at the side, we can see f32 is really small and f2.8 is a lot bigger. Obviously, the larger the hole, the more light that's going to get through, and the brighter our final picture is going to be. The smaller the hole, the less light will get through, and the darker the picture is going to be. Now, after this, we're going to come and have a look how we control it. This is a Nikon, and if we look on the screen here, we can see where it's got the F number. That is our aperture. So when I've got that on f5 now, we can see this it's a fairly open aperture. And again, as we open it up further and further, we can see on the exposure meter that the exposure goes up. And as we scroll it down to f8 and further, we can see that it's starting to get darker. So if we've got this picture here of this Buddha statue, we can see this picture is well exposed, and as we go up through the different f-stops, we're going to close the aperture hole down and the picture is going to turn darker. If we don't want the picture to get darker, we're going to need to adjust the other settings, usually the shutter, but also we can think about changing the ISO if we have no other option. Now we also need to understand depth of field. So for example, here we have a picture of a gecko. We can see the gecko's eyes are really sharp, and as we go further towards his tail, it starts to go out of focus, and also the hand he's standing on is more or less completely out of focus. This has got a really low depth of field. If we look at this picture now, we can see the tree in the background's nice and sharp, all the mountains in the background are sharp, and even the rocks and the waves in the foreground are sharp. So this picture has got a very wide depth of field. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have a practice with this. Here I've got my camera and I've got it on a low depth of field to start off with. I'm going to shoot the picture, and then once I've done that, I'm going to push the aperture closed up to f22, and I'm also going to open up the shutter so we don't change the overall exposure. And here we can see in these two pictures, we've got one with a fairly blurred background and one with a fairly sharp background. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at this chart. This tells us everything we need to know. Okay, so we've got f2 here. This is a very open aperture, and as we can see the little icon here, the background is very blurred. As we go up to f32, the background is very sharp. We can also look at the brightness. As we go to the left, it's a lot brighter, the white colour at f2, and then as we go down to f32, we can see the picture is going to get darker. Here are some examples of depth of field again. Here we can see this little crab. That's got a very shallow depth of field, and that's been shot at about f6. Now I have used a different lens for this, which will also affect the depth of field. We'll go into that later. And then if we look at the next picture now, we can see this has got a really large depth of field. And again, I've used a wide angle here, which again is going to help the depth of field be sharp, but also have a fairly high aperture. Okay guys, I hope this has helped clear up what the aperture is, what it does, and how it can help you improve your pictures. If you have any questions or think there's anything useful I've missed out, please feel free to add it in the comments section below. You can also leave questions on our Facebook community group, and I'm sure there'll be loads of people there to help you. If you have found this video useful, giving it a thumbs up is a really big help for me, and it also lets me know that I'm going in the right direction. It's also worth pointing out that the exposure chart earlier on in the video will be available for download on my website very soon, and I will drop a link in the description below when this is ready. So enjoy your camera guys, and I'll see you in the next one.